Hey, more NHL trade rumors coming out like crazy as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline. Gavrikov, Chychrun, Detroit, and the Toronto Maple Leafs might be working on something. And then Erik Carlson of the San Jose Sharks. Stick around. Hey guys, hey, welcome back. Ducks Hockey and more. Another video on the trade rumor mill. I love talking about these rumors. By the way, real quick, you might see my breath, if you can see that. My studio is in my garage, so it is currently, we had a huge snowstorm roll through yesterday. All day yesterday it snowed. I've shoveled so much snow in the last 24 hours, it's ridiculous. But so it's pretty cold in my garage at the moment. Warmer in here than it is anywhere else, like as far as outside goes. But long story short, you might see my breath. But we're talking trade rumors today, again, as always, right? Doing this at least once a week as things come out. So the latest stuff to be coming out, I want to talk briefly about Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane, he released in a press conference or in a statement basically that said, hey, the two teams I was interested in going to were the New York Rangers or the Toronto Maple Leafs. So it kind of explains why he was a little bit upset and a little bit taken back by the fact that the New York Rangers pulled the trigger on Tarasenko, and so now that took away one of his options to go to, one of the teams he was willing to go to. So interesting stuff that Patrick Kane's kind of limited himself to those two teams. I have a feeling that might expand a little bit. I have heard that the Vegas Golden Knights have expressed interest in Patrick Kane, so we'll see. We'll see what happens there. For Chicago's sake, Patrick Kane moves before the trade deadline and they get something for him in return, right? I mean, that's really ultimately the best thing for him. But Patrick Kane holds the cards in that one with that no trade, no movement clause. So that's the interesting stuff. So on the other side of that, I want to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Detroit Red Wings. Both teams have been rumored to be very interested in working out a trade involving the main piece of that, Detroit's Tyler Bertuzzi. Bertuzzi is basically not Bertuzzi and Stevie Y. They're not coming to an agreement on contract negotiations in terms of an extension to keep Bertuzzi around. So where does that leave him? Well, it leaves Stevie Y with a player that he would like to keep, but it's not working out, so you're going to move him then. You're not going to let that guy get away without getting something in return. So Detroit looks like they're going to move Bertuzzi because they haven't worked anything out. Doesn't look like anything's really happening. So Bertuzzi's probably going to be moved before the deadline, March 3rd. So some teams that are interested in Bertuzzi, I shouldn't say some teams, but the Toronto Maple Leafs, there are several teams, by the way, that are interested in Bertuzzi. But the one I'm talking about specifically, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Okay, the Maple Leafs, it makes sense, and I'll touch on it right now. We'll kind of talk about it, but there are going to be several players involved with a trade like that. Bertuzzi obviously being the major player, the big piece of that. The Leafs, according to what I've read, in the articles I've read, they've long been rumored to be interested in Bertuzzi. So this goes back into last season as well. Now, last season's when Bertuzzi had a really good year for Detroit. And this year, not so much, but he's also been playing, some injuries have kind of kept him sidelined too. So it's just been kind of a rough year for Bertuzzi, but we know how good he can be. And now that he's kind of been playing a little bit more, back from injury, he's starting to pick up his point production for Detroit. So he's increasing his value right now. So he's making a case for himself for sure. Somebody's probably going to get him, and it's going to be a good addition to try to make a playoff run. But on the Leafs side, imagine Bertuzzi fitting in on the second line with John Tavares and Nylander. I mean, think about that. They've already got offensive production, and they're pretty stacked, okay, when it comes to that. But you add a Bertuzzi to make, and think about it. Toronto is on the hot seat. Dubas, the GM, and their coach. If they don't get out of the first round, their jobs are on the line. Really, when it comes right down to it, the Leafs are just notoriously known for bowing out in the first round. And going home with their tail between the legs, even after having really good seasons. So here we are again. Toronto started the season off kind of rough. There was some question marks, but they are rolling right now. They are playoff bound for sure. And like I said, they need to get out of the first round. Otherwise, Leafs fans are going to come down there and burn the house down. Okay, so I think they're going to pull the trigger on something. They're either going to add a defenseman or they're going to add somebody like a Tyler Bertuzzi, from Detroit, to solidify and give them the depth they need to really, really, really make that push and get beyond that first round. So I don't know. I think Bertuzzi slides in great on that second line. He also could just add more scoring on the third line. If you kept, I think it's Järnkrok that's on the second line now, with Tavares and Nylander, but you put him down. If you don't take him off that and put Bertuzzi on the second line, and you have a third line guy, Bertuzzi on the third line, that gives you even more offensive power, but on your bottom two lines, which as far as depth goes, playoff-wise, that's not a bad looking gig either, right? So Bertuzzi brings a lot to the table. He's got the offensive ability. He showed that last year, and he's starting to pick it up this year. One of the other things about him that's great is his physicality. He likes to bang. He can hit. So, especially come playoff time, in my opinion, personally, that's something you want. I mean, you want it all year long, but in the playoffs, if you can get in there and make that other team second guess what they're about to do, or be looking over their shoulder because maybe that Bertuzzi could be bearing down on them or something like that. When you deliver that kind of message with a player like Bertuzzi, that is critical for being successful in the playoffs, in my opinion. The other thing about him is he's a good two-way player. He can play both ends responsibly. Very good. So, he's the complete package. He's not like a huge point producer big time. I mean, last year was very good, and he showed his potential and what he's capable of. But depth-wise, adding that offensive punch, the physicality, that two-way play, what an addition he would be to any team, but Toronto specifically. So you never know. Bertuzzi could be playing in a Maple Leafs jersey come playoff time or come before the end of the year. Moving on. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Jacob Chychrun and Vladislav Gavrikov, of the Columbus Blue Jackets, Chychrun of Arizona, both healthy scratches, basically taken out of the lineup for preventative purposes for potential trades, right? Their names have been out there for a long time in regards to being moved. So there was this isn't new news in the sense that, they're going to get traded. We knew they were going to get traded, right? But with Chychrun, we weren't sure if it was going to happen this year, maybe in the offseason, maybe next season, because Arizona holds the cards on that one. He still has 2 years left on his contract. But this kind of sends a message now that he's being taken out. They're protecting him. They don't want their prized trade piece to be injured, so they're taking him out of the lineup. That just basically says something's going to happen soon. Gavrikov is the latest one. He has now been taken out of the lineup because obviously there is an impending trade. What day it's going to happen, no one's really sure. There's a lot of rumors out there right now, and quite honestly, all that matters is that they're taking him out of the lineup. They're protecting their asset for that trade, and it's going to happen soon. We just don't know exactly what day, when, what team, that kind of thing. He's a top 4 defenseman. He's a stay-at-home defenseman. We're talking about Gavrikov, okay? Vladislav Gavrikov, he's a stay-at-home guy, top 4 for sure. So any team looking to add a big defenseman, he's a stay-at-home guy. He's not going to put up big numbers offensively. So it'd be a team that doesn't need that. They just need a solid, good defenseman, right? That's what he brings to the table. Here are some teams that are interested in him. Boston Bruins. Boston, I guess, came out of nowhere and now is kind of like one of the top teams rumored to be in on the Gavrikov sweepstakes, if you will. I look at it and I go, well, does Boston really need a Gavrikov? Is that necessary for them? You know what? I mean, I think solid. They have the most solid lineup up and down, playing so well right now that Boston really doesn't need to do anything. Okay. The only thing that I feel like Boston will do, and they're either going to go for a forward or they're going to go for a guy like a Gavrikov or a Chychrun maybe. And really they're going to do that because they're going to go all in. Okay. This is their best shot at giving guys like Bergeron, Marchand, Krejci their one last shot as a Boston Bruin to raise the cup. Okay, and I think, if anything, the Bruins and their management, they're going to just say, screw it, let's just do it, man. Let's go all in and give up some assets and picks, whatever. We'll see how far they're willing to give up some good stuff, right? But I feel like, and there's a lot of, and most of the NHL insiders feel like they may just say, screw it, let's do it, let's go for it. And even though they're the top team right now going into the playoffs, as they get closer and closer to just go all the way, anything can happen in the playoffs. I don't care if you're the top team, won the President's Trophy, you could bow out in the first round. Once playoff starts, it all resets and it all starts over. So Boston may just go for it, go all in and go for it. So that's that right there. Buffalo Sabres possibly. Buffalo's one of those teams that's not currently in a playoff position. They're fighting to get in. Okay, they're a few points back of like Pittsburgh, I think it is, and some other teams that they need to get past. I think Florida and Washington are a couple of them to get into the playoffs. Now, the question becomes, is the GM willing to pull the trigger on somebody like Gavrikov, add him to the mix to try to make that run to get in the playoffs? Okay, they're not playoff bound for sure. It's just let's try it. Or not knowing that they're going to make it, are they willing to give up a first rounder or any, of their prospects or anything like that? Because they're not sure if they're even going to make it. So they're in that gray area right now where it's like you're either going to gamble, roll the dice, or maybe you don't. Maybe you just say, screw it, let's try it with what we got. And if we don't make it, oh well. So we'll see with Buffalo. The other team, Dallas Stars, who are leading the Western Conference right now. They're doing very well. Are they going to go out and look for somebody like a Gavrikov, a stay-at-home guy? Possibly. I think that they could use it. They could also use maybe some second-line offensive help too. Okay, so they can kind of go either way. Add some D depth, or maybe go for somebody on the second-line offensive help. To give them that push going into the playoffs. Another team that's highly interested and rumored to be interested in Gavrikov is the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton's been linked to lots of different defensemen. Okay, Klingberg of the Ducks, Gavrikov, Chychrun. So now Erik Carlson. So there's a lot of it's no joke and no mystery that Edmonton is 100% looking for a defenseman, and I think that's good. They need to add a good D guy to that offensive core. The question is do they want an offensive guy or do they want a more stay-at-home defensive-minded defenseman? Gavrikov is just your stay-at-home defensive guy, right? Do they want a good puck-moving offensive-minded defenseman? That's not your guy. Gavrikov wouldn't be it. So it's kind of, I think for them, it's just what do you want, Edmonton, and go for it, whatever. And then the Los Angeles Kings, they're highly rumored. They're like top runners in the Chychrun sweepstakes. I think that they could possibly be looking at maybe a Gavrikov too, but who knows, right? Chychrun seems to be the one that they're going to land. That's what everybody keeps saying. We shall see. The Maple Leafs are the last team in the Gavrikov rumor mill. I think that right now Toronto's going to pull the trigger on something. Like I was talking about before, they need to get past the first round. So what are they going to do? Tyler Bertuzzi, Gavrikov, defense. They need to solidify their defense a little bit, depth-wise. They've been playing really well defensively as of late, and that's why they're in the position they're in. But adding that depth defenseman might push them over the edge, get them past that first round, or they go after a forward. They trust their D and what they've got, and they go for a Bertuzzi or maybe a Timo Meier. Timo Meier is also rumored be the Maple Leafs and Timo Meier could be a connection there. So anyways, there you go. That's the Gavrikov stuff. Let's talk a little bit about Erik Carlson. Okay, San Jose's Erik Carlson. He carries a huge contract. I think it's like $11.5 million. And he signed for another, I think, 4 years or something like that. But he has been mentioned in a lot of rumors for being traded. And you know, obviously San Jose in any deal, no matter what they do, if they decide to move him, they're going to have to retain a lot of his salary, okay, at least half of it. So that's a big chunk of dough they'll have to hold on to, but they're going to get a huge return for him. Carlson's having a epic year, a Norris Trophy type of winning year. In fact, based on his current pace, he's going to hit 100 points this year if he continues on his current pace. So he's huge. Now, this guy is an offensive-minded defenseman, all right? And Edmonton makes the most sense to me for him. You've already got McDavid and Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, okay? Patrick Kane, which could be a piece, actually, but I don't think Patrick Kane's... He's definitely not going back to San Jose. So if San Jose is involved and it's a Carlson thing, it's definitely... Patrick Kane won't be involved in that, but... They've got the offensive weapons. They don't need anything else, really. It's more or less defense. They need defense. Adding an offensive-minded defenseman like an Erik Carlson, man, can you think about what Edmonton, who's already this high-powered offense and can, you know, smoke you with McDavid and Draisaitl, all of these guys. Now add Erik Carlson. Can you imagine your number one power play? Connor McDavid, even in 5-on-5, Connor McDavid, Erik Carlson. I mean, all these guys out there. I mean, that may be what Edmonton is. Edmonton got to the conference finals last year. Maybe Carlson puts them into the Cup final. You never know, right? So there you go on that. I mean, there's some other defensemen. Like I said before, that the Oilers could be going after. But again, it comes down to do they want a puck moving defenseman, an offensive minded guy, okay, or do they want to stay at home guy? And so that's yet to be seen. But I think if they don't land Erik Carlson, which is highly unlikely, even though there's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of talk about those two teams talking about him, but it's probably not likely. And if it doesn't happen, who's the next best fit? Well, John Klingberg in Anaheim, he's an offensive-minded defenseman, and Shane Gostisbehere in Arizona. So he's another guy, okay? Both those players, not the greatest defenders, okay? Defensively, they're but they're definitely puck-moving guys that can help you create offense, right? Back on the blue line, especially on the power play. So we'll see what happens there. Interesting stuff, though, Erik Carlson and the Oilers. Now let's move on to the other guy, the other defenseman. Lots of defensemen talked about in the trade rumor mill right now. And the biggest one is, or I shouldn't say the biggest one, but I should say one of the big ones, and the one that's been talked about a lot even since last year, Jakob Chychrun in Arizona. So right now, Chychrun has been taken off the ice. He's a healthy scratch. They want to keep their asset injury-free, right? So that if a trade does come, he's not injured and sitting back there and loses value. So the top team in the Chychrun sweepstakes are the Los Angeles Kings. That pains me as a Ducks fan, but that's the team that seems to be leading the way. Now, I've heard rumors now and read some things that maybe LA is off the table when it comes to Chychrun because of the asking price. And I think that's the biggest reason any team would be off the table is the asking price that Arizona wants. They want some good stuff. First round pick, first round prospect, possibly, and maybe a third player. You know, they want a lot for a Chychrun, and I understand why. He holds a very good value, and quite honestly, if you really want him, then you got to pay for him, right? So we'll see what happens, but the teams that he might end up going to, Los Angeles, like I mentioned, Edmonton, we talked about them, possibly the Maple Leafs even too. Toronto might be interested on Chychrun, and his contract isn't huge. I think it's like a $4.6 million. So it's not like it's major money, like a Carlson type money. It's workable. Okay. It's workable, especially if Arizona eats some of that and retains half his salary, or a third team gets involved and takes on a contract to free up some salary and cap room. A team like Toronto, who's up against the cap can make that work. Even Boston, right? Boston's rumored to now be in on Chychrun. So who knows what's going to happen? It's all rumors, but man, things are heating up because that trade deadline is coming really fast. Things are moving really fast. I can't believe how fast things are moving right now. So that's all I got today on the trade rumor side of things, guys. I love trade rumors. They're my favorite. Okay, they really are. And this time of the year, things start really ramping up. There's lots of talk. Who's going where, what teams are interested in who, that kind of thing. So interesting stuff, though, with Gavrikov and Chychrun being taken off the ice, healthy scratches. That means something's going to happen real soon. Just don't know what day and when. It'll be interesting to see where those guys go. But as always, hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to me rant and talk trade rumors. If you have any comments, as you agree with me, you disagree with me, I don't care. Leave it down below. Please comment. I definitely get back to anybody that leaves me a comment. I love those. As always, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, Ducks Hockey and More is not just about Ducks Hockey. It's about the rest of the NHL as well. So please subscribe. That way you can get all my videos. And so I'm always talking hockey, at least 2 to 3 videos a week. So anyways, hey, thanks for watching, guys. Love being a part of this channel. Let's blow it up. Subscribe. We'll see you next time.